one night, Bob was parked the truck on the Chinese side of the border, and he prepared to have some dinner. First he fed Kitten, and then he bedded her down between 4 Allison engines. Well, there's not much room to crawl between the 4 Allison engines. There's about 18 inches. So Kitten was clear up in the front near the bed of the truck, near the truck body. And Bob settled in a restaurant across the street, well in visual range of the truck. Soon afterwards, these 2 Chinese men walked up to the truck, and they were looking at it quite suspiciously. They were looking this way, and they're looking that way, and talking in low voices to each other. Bob was calmly eating his noodles. Finally, one of the men got enough courage, and he walked over and he flipped up the back of the canvas, and he looked in there, and oh boy, by that time these guys were jabbering at each other. They were getting excited. They were fidgeting, and they were obviously quite pleased with themselves. So Bob continued to calmly eat his noodles. Soon, they got up a little bit of bravery, and they opened the canvas flap, and both of them disappeared into the back of the truck. Bob continued to eat his noodles. Seconds later, this loud jabbering sound of this jabbering, these people are just going completely nuts. The flap of the truck flies open. Both Chinese came flying out like cartoon characters, feet flaying, arms flaying. They hit the ground, falling over each other to get away. A split later, Kitten, now a fully grown snow leopard, as you saw, popped out of the truck behind them, and everybody scattered. And then Kitten calmly looked around, settled down to wait for Bob. And Bob finished his noodles with a smile. Thank you. There was one other small story I'll throw in here. I think if you appreciated that one. Bob would talk about how he would have Kitten in the back of the truck, and you have to realize how bouncy this road was. I mean, we're talking about an army truck, and he's bouncing around and all that. And Kitten demanded a lot of attention, and so she would come up from behind, and she would just go slurp. And he's still driving along, and said slurp. And finally, he just, Kitten, will you leave me alone? I'm trying to drive this truck. And it's slurp. So finally, he would just whack her one like that. She did not like that. But she would calm down. So he's bouncing along that. The next thing he knows, she just whacked him one. And he is losing control. He's bouncing all over the place. As Bob said, just like a woman, if you don't pay attention to her, she'll whack you one. There were many moments of spontaneity that was captured in our oral history that would never make it into a documentary, never make it to the history. They were just moments that were so precious but had nothing to do with the overall story. One of the first interviews I did was with a man that many of you may have known, and certainly I'm sure have known about. His name was R.T. Smith. R.T. was a regular attendee at air shows, and his book, Tale of a Tiger, is still available. I recommend that you read it. It's one of the few books that really is quite accurate on the story of the Flying Tigers. I first met R.T. at an ACES reunion in Arizona. I had a personal introduction by a mutual friend, fellow ace Joe Rosbert. It was late in the evening, and after the banquet, and R.T. was nursing a drink. So Joe introduced me, and he outlined the facts. He said, Rossi and the association were encouraging members to cooperate with Frank and Frank. I was setting up schedules for oral history interviews, and of course, R.T. was at the top of the list. Well, this comment registered on his BS meter. And, well, we entered into a pretty spirited discussion about the AVG and the documentary film I was trying to make. And by the end of the evening, I was confident. He had agreed to an interview. I was not so confident that I could make it back to my hotel room, however. Oh, wait. Lights back on, please. There we go. The next evening, Joe and I entered the hospitality suite and came upon RT nursing a drink. Filled with the spirit of camaraderie from my new drinking buddy, I approached RT with a hail and fare thee well enthusiasm. He took one look at me, then at Joe, and said, "Who the hell is he?" Needless to say, I had to reacquaint myself with RT that night and once again left the hospitality suite wandering around looking for my room. I had secured a date and a time for the interview, and weeks later, I called RT at his home and to verify the appointment. I was somewhat leery given my last two introductions that I actually went out of my way to identify myself on the phone, and he says, "I know who you are. When are you coming over with your gang?" Well, if you've seen Fei Hu, the documentary, you know that RT is featured quite prominently. After an initial argument about the pros and cons of smoking during an interview, we proceeded to settle down to business. I had extensive notes. I had read RT's books, and there were several references to him in many of the Flying Tigers books, and there actually was a 3rd Squadron log which survived, which was like a day-to-day activities of the 3rd Squadron. But interviewing a subject for an oral history is very different than having a simple conversation with somebody. One of the main points that's difficult to try and get across to people that you're interviewing is that some of the questions you ask may seem so incredibly obvious and stupid. But the point is that you're trying to get them to say it on record. So what may be obvious to him may not be obvious to somebody 200 years from now. So when we asked RT a particular question, he didn't quite understand that I was even bothering to ask it. And as you'll see here, off camera, you'll see an outtake here of my partner, Frank Christopher, asking him a question. Okay.
That shouldn't be necessary to tell anybody. Why the hell? After all these months of fighting and flying without any decent food or living accommodations, attention, the whole goddamn thing, Jesus Christ. You have to tell somebody why we felt we needed a little time off? Did I tell you?
Yes, RT, you did tell us.